Hi there. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to make your resume stand out, especially if you're trying to apply to a program abroad. Now, in my previous video, part one of this particular topic, I did talk about what a resume is, how is it different from a CV. I did talk about formatting a resume and typical things to avoid when you're building a good resume, right? In today's video, though, I'm going to take a slightly different pivot. I'm going to talk about how to make your resume really stand out, present the same kind of information, but create greater impact on whoever is reading, especially if it's an admission committee, judging your candidature for a program, bachelor's or master's in a university abroad. My name is Anand Venkatesh, and I'm the founder and mentor of this platform called mentorscapital.com. All the information that I'm giving you comes from our extensive knowledge and the experience of our vast network of mentors. All right. Now, when it comes to a resume, I think there are two things which you definitely need to, keep in mind in order to showcase impact, right? Remember, the objective of you giving a resume to the admission committee or even to a prospective employer is to create a good impression, right? So two things that you can do. Number one, make sure that you use action words to describe every single sentence, right? Every single bullet point, every single description in your resume should begin with a really, really strong word. Now, these words, include ones like led, conceptualized, ideated, presented, assisted. Essentially, all these words that indicate, a strong sense of leadership, creativity, action orientation, right? So those are things that come right from reading your or glancing at your resume, right? So use of power words. However, I think this is a point which has been touted by many advisors, many consultants online as well as offline, right? And so this is a point which I think most students understand and most students indeed do implement. However, the mistake people make is to assume that merely power words, used in describing my achievements, in describing my activities, both at an academic and a professional sphere, would suffice, right? Well, you couldn't be more wrong, because it turns out that a professional looks at your CV, I think they will always go beyond the mere words that you use to describe, right? So it's not going to be all fluff that's going to impress them. You need to actually add a lot of meat to your resume, a lot of detail to your resume that will hopefully showcase the impact that you created, and that will make a positive impression, right? Now, what do I mean by that? So the idea is always to ask yourself, by essaying the role that I did, what was the impact I created? And is the way I'm describing it, is that conveying the impact I created or not, right? And I think to put this in a nutshell, I think all you need to do is ask yourself for each point, well, what did this achieve? What was the outcome? And that question should directly answer whether your the description is actually creating an impact or not, right? Now let me explain this by taking a few examples, right? And you can see that on the left hand side, I've used power words, and all of these points are very, very well presented to the audience, whether it was something as basic as assisting my internship supervisor on allocation of resources, or whether it was making a presentation to senior clients, clients based in a different geography, based in US, maybe Europe, and with a particular objective in mind, right? So you can see that the points are all well elucidated, and they're also beginning with words that do indicate action orientation, that indicate initiative and drive. However, do they showcase impact, right? Now compare those with the points, the bullets on the right hand side, right? Now on the right hand side, you can see that each point also has an outcome, very clear outcome presented, whether it was allocation of resources is one thing, but to say, what was the quantum of resource, what was the value of resources that you helped allocate, what was the budget like, to say that I helped allocate $50,000 worth of resources, for business continuity, for new business development, for setting up a new office, something of that nature. I think the quantum of money involved can actually give a very, very clear idea of, how much, how big the responsibility was. At the other end, right, whether it was conducting sessions for, for business communication, or whether it was, helping your client reach out in the market, conduct research, or even roll out a particular plan. I think the outcome becomes critical. What was the final outcome? What was the final market share that you achieved? If it was if it was intended as a workshop or a presentation, did that lead to a particular outcome? Did you win the event? Were you placed second or third? If you were indeed placed in a podium finish, what was the competition like? How many teams competed? At what level was this competition? Was it across schools in your district, or was it, merely within, the students in your department, right? So these are things that can showcase competition, that can also create a really, really good impression in terms of impact on somebody who's reading the resume, right? So there's a big difference between, points that are well described by use of power words and otherwise, and then there are points which are well quantified, right? So not only are they well described, they are also giving a clear idea of the kind of impact you created, and these will obviously make a much better impression on the reader's mind, right? Now some of you will actually immediately start thinking, right, most of these points seem to involve some work that I did. The quantum of responsibility was huge. What if I lack work X? What if I've, just about graduated, or I'm in my first job, I don't have enough of a responsibility? Well, what do I do? Well, the point still stands that, when an admission committee looks at your resume, they will account for the fact that you come in with little experience, right? So you will be judged not with somebody who has, 4 to 5 years of work experience. However, the point about showcasing impact is still important for you, because whether it's extracurricular work, whether it's projects, internships, whether it was, the kind of papers that you presented, kind of research that you did, or even community outreach activities that you were involved with, quantification of these activities will indicate two things very clearly. Number one, that you did take the efforts to quantify. You did take the efforts, to measure your performance, not specifically for the admission committee or the program you're applying for, but for yourself, right? Expectation is that you do measure your own performance. You measure your impact that you created by way of your, responsibilities, right? So that's something that they will indeed look at. And two is that, by taking such an approach, I think you're also indicating to the admission committee, to maybe a prospective employer, that, hey, I really desire this position that I'm applying for, and I've taken all the efforts to, to highlight the strong points in my candidature, right? So it's at both ends indicating a deep desire, a passion in you for the particular role, but also a general sense of, measurement, of self-introspection, of trying to improve yourself, right? And that's something that you can do even for academic work, even for things that happened in school or college. All right. And as far as closing remarks on showcasing impact, make sure that, you take a look at, you consider these 3 points. Number one, whenever you put a point on your resume, ask yourself, so what, right? Did it create a particular outcome? Was there a measurable outcome that I can showcase? And remember, whether it's academic, professional, or project, or even volunteer work, showcasing impact is important, right? Now, to showcase impact, you also need to do a little bit of background work, right? Now, even if you have a certificate from a particular organization, or if your grade sheet is there, your transcripts are available, I think you need to dig a little deeper in terms of what was the performance of, other candidates, of at a similar position, right? Maybe I'm doing an internship. Maybe there are 4 other interns along with me. What kind of recommendations did they get? What kind of outcomes did they achieve? Similarly, another way of, doing background research is to actually go into the past. Maybe there were prefects, or people who held this kind of a position, or people who did do this kind of activity in the past, maybe in the last year or so. What were their outcomes like? Did I do something which was better than last year, right? If I was part of a sponsorship committee, then did I raise funds that were better than last year or worse off, right? And sometimes when you make these comparisons, instead of giving an absolute value, it's smarter to actually give a percentage comparison, right? To say that my budget went from 10,000 rupees to 15,000 rupees might not be much, but to say that you grew it by 50% is actually to really entice the reader, right? And get him intrigued about, okay, that sounds quite impressive. Let's call this candidate over and maybe ask how that was achieved, right? So in elucidating that kind of interest, and by putting those numbers that don't just highlight your impact but also intrigue the reader, I think that's something that you should be going for. And lastly, I think, remember, and most students forget this, that irrespective of whether you write the showcase the outcome or the end result, you also need to showcase and highlight your contribution to achieving that outcome, right? Sure, the fest that you organized, the project that you led, did lead to particular outcomes, but what exactly was your role in it? Were you somebody who was collecting funds? Were you a volunteer or a coordinator? Was your work involved in planning? Was it involved in execution? Was it involved in taking feedback? Right? Make sure that you highlight your contribution that helped achieve a particular quantified outcome. And so those are three things that you must keep in mind when you're trying to showcase impact on your resume. I hope this makes sense to all of you. I do want to highlight that we at Mentors Capital can really help you assess some of these aspects from your life story, from all that you've done in school and college. And we do this because our vast network of mentors have all been there, in similar journeys when they applied, which means that they can handhold you through test taking, right? How to improve your scores, how to do better at the GRE or the SAT, as might be the case. They can also help you craft narratives, compelling narratives in your essays, in your SOPs, and letters of recommendations. And finally, they can also help you tackle some of these, new age online assessments, Kira assessment or other video assessments, maybe even a personal interview if it comes to it. So do reach out to us. The link is there in the description in case you need our support with anything. If you have any queries you think I can answer, I'll be glad to help you in any which ways. And by the way, if you do like this video, give me a thumbs up, do subscribe to our channel, and do comment with any suggestions that you have for future videos. I do hope that your resume becomes truly standout and you get it to your dream university. Thank you, have a great day, and wish you all the very best in your admission journeys.